Hey, everybody, welcome to the Home Care Forum podcast with your hosts, Sasha, Guillaume, and Emina Poricanin. We have a few items to discuss today. First is the Crain's reporting that Public Partnership LLC, PPL, admitted in a letter to the lawmakers that its staff had met with the Department of Health when the state was considering moving to the single FI to administer the CDPAP program, contradicting the Health Commissioner James McDonald and PPL's own VP of Relations, of Public Relations or Government Relations, Patty Burns, who last month at a state oversight hearing claimed having no knowledge whatsoever of any prior contact, raising serious questions about the transparency and accountability, which has led to several lawsuits following the award. Emina, have at it.
I mean, someone needs to coach these people before they take a stand because right now it looks like a circus, a completely unscripted circus. At the end of the day, though, I do wonder if this is going to make a difference because I haven't seen anything from the governor's office suggesting that they will be changing course. Perhaps this feeds into some of the lawsuits, and I have to double check honestly the status of those. But that was the crux of those lawsuits that largely went nowhere against PPL, that there was this conspiracy or some, for lack of a better word, insider trading that allowed PPL to get in and obtain this lucrative contract with New York State. So, to the extent any of those lawsuits are still out there and pending, this testimony could be helpful to them and perhaps force the state's hand to do something about this. But in the absence of that, again, I don't see the governor really blinking at this. And again, as we've discussed before on this podcast, things have shifted significantly because of the federal pressure on Medicaid cuts. So even if Hochul wanted to do something and bring this program back, she now has these federal Trump administration pressures to consolidate home care generally, reduce home care costs generally, not just CDPAP. So it is certainly entertaining to watch. I think it kind of supports the narrative and the notion that this was completely unfair, which we've always said, right? The way that this was administered and done was completely unfair. But does it change anything? I don't see any indication that it will change. I talk to clients all the time who have had CDPAP and kind of have gone beyond this, or even the fiscal intermediaries to some extent, and they're all telling me we're done with this. We are now on the sidelines watching what is happening with these testimonies, and every once in a while we are alerted to new developments in this area, but are we actually doing anything day to day to address this? No, we're not. We've moved on. We've shifted. We've planned. We've executed on our other business maintenance priorities, and we're focusing on that. CDPAP is in the past. That is what I'm hearing. You're a business owner yourself. You had a standalone fiscal intermediary. You have Alexa, Sasha. I mean, is that consistent with what your mindset is, or are you still actively fighting to get this back? If you don't mind telling us.
I am along the lines of what you just described with the other owners, though we do have our lawsuit, which is still moving along. And I did receive a message from our attorneys that the judges who were picked were favorable to our stance, and so the lawyers were taking that in a positive way. And this was prior to this coming out in the Crain's article, right? So I think this is one of those situations where we're moving on to new business. If this comes back around, we'll adjust to it. But dismantling this whole thing, I don't know if that is a viable solution. On another note, tangentially, the major takeaway from the joint oversight hearing for August 21, 2025, which was the oversight on the CDPAP program transition to single FI, is the importance of the LHCSA RFO repeal laid out in new legislation A 813 and S 7874, sponsored by Paulin and Rivera, to do away with the LHCSA RFO, right? So we need to focus on that as we have shifted to that line of business. We need to make sure that there's nothing coming up to bite us on the heels, surprisingly take away that line of business as well. I'm guessing your clients as well are looking in this direction to advocate.
Yes, yes, they are. And then I guess pivoting a little bit to advocacy and what's coming up the pike. We are now recording this on September 8th. Legislative session hasn't begun, but there are a lot of things in the background happening and posturing in anticipation of the legislative session commencing at the beginning of 2026. And I can't believe we're almost actually close to 2026. But are you able to talk a little bit, at least preliminarily, what your group is doing and what types of things it is going to be pursuing in the upcoming session?
Yeah, so Fair Action Initiative is our new association for the home care industry. And we've been sending out invitations to LHCSAs to join us and vendors, those tangentially involved in the industry. And we've had a lot of people signing up. We are presenting to groups to join us. But on the ground, we are already setting up meetings with the legislators. Stuart Cousins' office, Rivera's office. We're setting up meetings with the governor's office, and on both sides of the aisle, we are setting up meetings with the Department of Health, and more to come. We're going to be involved in the community. We're not going to wait until the new year to start meeting in Albany. No, we can't do that. We need to meet now and preemptively make our voices heard on what we need to do for the industry. And these are among the things, right? We will focus on the LHCSA RFO repeal. We had some suggestions or other items that we want to focus on that I was told not to speak about on the podcast, and which we're really excited about it. Different approaches to how to come up with solutions that are not just hands out. I'm sorry, I mean, I'm sorry. I know that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. Whether it's in a friendly conversation or in a podcast, to tease
I,
something like that out. But we're really excited about it, but we want to hash out the ideas. The only thing I can give you, it's a waiver of sorts that will benefit the industry if, seriously considered. So
a
I will
waiver,
leave it at that. Sorry for the tease.
a waiver.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna apply for a waiver to help the industry. So more to come. More to come.
Okay.
So let me switch topics quickly.
Go for it before I
As
get it all
not
out
to
of you.
yes, as not to stress out Emina too much or our listeners. The three ADLs, that is a big deal, where Medicaid eligibility requirements are changing for personal care services and for CDPAP. These new requirements are less strict, however, for beneficiaries with dementia or Alzheimer's. But you will need, for non-dementia or Alzheimer diagnoses, you will need to have three tasks of daily living you need assistance with. So those with dementia and Alzheimer's will have to submit form DOH 5821 during the assessment process to indicate that these limitations are present, and that will be a waiver of sorts for having three ADLs and remain at the two that is current. This is, I believe it's a cost-cutting measure, right? If you make it more difficult to be eligible for the program, then the idea is that there will be some savings. So those cases that are short hour cases, which were the hours that the MLTCs were looking for, right? That were the less than 30, they prefer the 20 or the 12s, where they would still get the same capitated rate, where they would quote unquote make be able to make some money on the reimbursement from the state, but that is seemingly going away. So you're going to be left with the higher hour cases. And if you couple that with pressures and the cap that's being placed on the NHCD program and some of the solutions being presented to the state, you're going to see a lot more high hour cases being pushed back to the MLTCs. So a lot of pressure on the MLTCs outside of the regulatory pressures that we're hearing rumors about.
Agreed. These are all cost-cutting measures from multiple ways, really. And the payors, as much as we villainize them on this podcast, right? The payors also have some of their own pressures that they did not have in the past. And as any business, they pass that down to the providers.
So let's speak about the E-Verify changes to bring everybody up to speed if you're not aware, because it's not mandated for us to use the E-Verify program. It is voluntary, mostly at the federal level, only mandatory for federal contractors. State-wise, it varies by state, and many states do require employers to use E-Verify to check the employee statuses and eligibility. So the recent updates around the E-Verify, the status change report provides information that can help employers determine when a Form I-9 must be recertified, right? So if an immigrant loses or their status changes, which has been happening of late, then employers will need to check their documents again against the acceptable documents and update and make sure that these employees are eligible to work in the United States. So that is the new requirement on the E-Verify. So outside of the E-Verify, you need to do this to confirm work eligibility, which is controlled immigration-wise at the federal level. Next, we want you to know that all New York State Department of Health regulated entities, that is Article 28, 36, and 40, which are subjected to the SHIN-NY, meaning the statewide health information network for New York regulations, are required to participate in the SHIN-NY and must sign the SCPA form by September 30th, 2025. This will allow doctors, hospitals, home care agencies, and pharmacies and other providers actually to securely share patient health information in real time. This is along the lines of the EVV sharing information. The state will be able to pull that information on the back end, and agencies will have access to hospital discharge summaries so aides and nurses know why a patient was admitted and how to follow up. Right? And agencies can check what prescriptions a patient is on before sending staff in the home. A lot of good things there. It will also help with value-based care for the patients, communication done securely and for the benefit of the patient. And I think this is a good thing. Again, make sure that you sign the form by September 30th, 2025. Lastly, we want to close out with a bit of good news in the Employment Trust Fund loan, which has been paid in full by New York State. Governor Hochul is taking credit for that. We've suffered the increases of late, and Governor Hochul announced last week, alongside with businesses and labor leaders, that New York State has fully repaid its $7 billion federal unemployment insurance trust fund loan. The payoff delivers to employers whose contribution rates, stating again, had recently increased while the loan was outstanding. Businesses are expected to save an average of $100 per employee in 2026 and $250 per employee in 2025, which represents approximately a 30% decrease in unemployment insurance rates in 2026 and potentially 70% reduction in 2027.
Sasha, as far as the unemployment insurance piece is concerned, I just want to highlight that the repayment of this trust fund loan to the federal government will result in a decrease in unemployment insurance premiums for employers because the state will no longer be receiving those AIS interest surcharges from the federal government that they've been passing on to the employers. And so there will be, starting with next year, a observable decrease in premiums for employers.
Great news there. And that is all for us this week. Quick episode, but a lot of good information. Thank you, Emina, for participating as always. Thank you all for listening. This has been the Home Care Forum podcast with your hosts, Sasha Guillaume and Emina Poricanin. Have a good one.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.